We're back to you after Major League Baseball has come down with a monumentous decision about the Houston Astros cheating scandal with sign stealing in 2017, with some major implications for the Houston Astros, the AL West, and for baseball. James Osborn alongside with Shannon Drayer, 710 ESPN Seattle Mariners reporter. Shannon, give us some background and some understanding of what you think of this major decision and ultimately what they actually did, what baseball did.
I think this is a huge day in baseball history, in that we see the punishment that was given out. And let's be clear, the investigation is ongoing. If I'm Alex Cora right now, I'm nervous. If I'm Beltran right now, maybe not as nervous, but obviously baseball took this very seriously, as they said that they were going to. If you've missed it, the penalties, some of the penalties have come down for the Astros cheating scandal. And to me, it was a bit of a surprise that the suspensions were for as long as they were. When I first saw that Jeff Lunau and A.J. Hinch, GM and manager of the Astros, were suspended for a year, that is severe. Then you look at the penalties. We were hoping that there would be draft pick penalties, and there were 2 years, first and second round picks. That is huge. The dollar value with those picks, let alone what that does for Houston, that is already, and we'll get to this in a second, in kind of a precarious spot moving forward as far as roster building goes. They're up against the salary, not salary cap, up against the luxury tax right now. You didn't see them have, I think, the offseason you expected to. It's the first time they've had to deal with money. So that is big. Looking at them going forward, $5 million fine, which baseball's made of money. Fines mean little to me, other than that the MLB fund is going to get, MLB charities will be getting $5 million. So that, I suppose, is good for MLB charities. But Major League Baseball had to do something severe. I think it's apparent that, and we talked about it in the last video, that what the Astros did, I don't know that teams did it to the extent that they did, but with what is in place and what is available to all teams with technology right now, there's a downside to that, and bad things can happen. And MLB drew a line in the sand saying that if you cheat, the punishment is going to be severe. So it was more than I thought it would be on the personnel side. Now, players were not penalized in this, and I think that's interesting because it's apparent that players were involved in this. In fact, the report, and again, the full report is on mynorthwest.com. It's 9-page from Manfred, from the investigation. There's a lot in that. I would recommend reading that if you're interested. The report said that this was basically player-driven, with Alex Cora facilitating it. So
Alex Cora, a member of the Astros
at the time, the bench coach, and now the Red Sox, and penalties are coming there. But the players weren't touched in this, which, with the labor agreement coming up, and maybe they don't want to tangle with the players' union right now, maybe it's tough to get enough proof and how much and the extent players were involved. But they came down hard on the manager and the GM, and in turn, just a few minutes ago, owner Jim Crane came down and fired both. So dramatic happenings in the game today.
Yeah, there's a lot to untangle here. Especially with the impacts that it will have on the Mariners. We'll get to that in a moment. But I do want to recap sort of what had happened, what the actual decisions were. You'd mentioned them in passing through this whole time. But the Houston Astros have essentially now lost their general manager. They've lost their manager. They've lost $5 million. And they've lost their first and second round draft picks in 2020, this upcoming season, and the next season in 2021. Out of all those punishments that come down for the Astros and the subsequent firings, which you talk about, how do you see these impacting the Houston Astros in 2020 and in the near future?
Well, the personnel will be the same. Obviously, they have to hire a manager and a GM. Jim Crane, the owner, came out and said that he's just disgusted that this was the culture, but also indicated that there was a culture in the front office, things going on beforehand that they were aware of, and we've heard buzz about that in the background. And also the Brandon Taubman situation, I think, exposed a lot of that. Brandon Taubman, the assistant GM, who of course was fired after the was it World Series or was it the ALCS?
After the ALCS.
After the ALCS.
So it was related to the Chapman or the
Ozuna
situation.
You can go read up on that if you want. And he additionally, in this report and in the findings here, has been basically banned until he's not from baseball.
Yeah, he's been placed on a 1-year ban from the commissioner's office and can apply to be reinstated after the 2020 World Series.
Which I wouldn't expect that would happen right away. It's kind of an indefinite thing. Not a good list to be on. And I've completely forgot the question.
Well, just what you see is the impact in 2020.
Oh, the impact in 2020. Well, the Astros team is what the Astros team is.
The talent-wise.
The talent-wise. I mean, that's not going to change, although we'll see what they do without the assist. I mean, as far as we're going to see a lot more monitoring, and already that had been upped with Major League Baseball putting somebody in every video room to make sure that verbally these things weren't happening. A lot of electronic stuff was going on with the Astros, so that could still happen. There's a lot to be sorted out on how they rein that in.
If Major League Baseball can put somebody in the video room in every one of these places, how many other places could they have put an official into to impact the game of baseball? If they can afford to put somebody in 15 Major League ballparks every single game, they're just going to watch sign stealing. That's another topic for another discussion.
Well, and how effective is that if somebody else can be sitting somewhere else and email? It
could
doesn't all have to come from the replay room. It could go anywhere. It could come from anywhere.
Regardless.
So that's not the most efficient way, but something has to be done there. So my question is, if you're a batter, and not all Astros batters use this, I don't believe Altuve, I think he is somebody who had said that he didn't like it, but your Bregmans and your Springers were, if you know a fastball is coming, you're more likely to hit that. It'll be interesting to see. Now, these are still going to be great players. They are great baseball players, but what are they without that assist? How does that impact what the Astros are this year? Astros pitching, which is still very, very good, not impacted by this in the least. So in 20 and 21, they're still a very good team. They will have a new manager. They will have a new GM. I don't think that the immediate fall off is going to be much if you are the Mariners. Now, if you are the New York Yankees, who have been doing this steadily for some time, maybe not having that assist is the difference between 3 or 4 wins, and maybe that is, that obviously means a lot more to the teams that are competing with them right now. But in the future, losing those draft picks and the Astros having to deal with the salary situation that they have right now, it could be big.
No matter how you feel about the Houston Astros management and leadership culture during their last few years under Jeff Luhnow and A.J. Hinch, you can't argue with the fact that they were incredibly successful. And the fact that they're going to move on from A.J. Hinch and Luhnow and move into an entirely new form of leadership and new style of baseball and new culture in general, that to me is going to be, I don't know how the Astros can maintain the level that they had previously with that regime. It's a different style, and obviously it was effective, even though that there potentially was a bad leadership culture for promoting just unethical behavior in many different ways, more than just baseball. But
well, and Hinch, and there are reports, and Hinch is a very good manager. Hinch apparently wanted no part of this, was against it, destroyed 2 of the monitors in the dugout.
Yeah, there was that report that came out. Also in Rob Manfred's investigation report, he said that several players had indicated that if their manager had told them to stop doing it, they would have stopped at any point in time. And A.J. Hinch did not at any point in time. According to the players who had snitched in this report, he had never said anything about this.
I don't know if I believe that, though, if he is destroying monitors. And I think that he was in a bad position because obviously his GM was not, he couldn't go to his GM about this. Jim Crane says he didn't know. MLB says ownership didn't know. I don't.
Of course.
MLB is going to side with ownership on this one. That is a given right there. But I mean, if you're the manager, you can't rat out your team. Yeah. I mean, it's just good luck getting hired if that gets out about you right there. You're not supported by upstairs. He's now fired, so that's a tough one right there. But he did good things for that team. He is a good man. He was a good in-game manager, a good off-the-field manager. He has got, I think, responsible for a lot of the good that we have seen from that team on the field. That's going to hurt. Who do they get next? Who wants to go to Houston after that? It's a tough situation.
So let's wrap this up with a Mariners perspective on this situation. How does this punishment to the Houston Astros and their subsequent leadership changes impact the Seattle Mariners in 2020 and moving forward?
Well, hopefully you don't see games where they beat them 21-1 or anything like that anymore. Well,
I'm not holding my breath for that.
There were some trash can bangs going on in that game and whatnot too. So hopefully you don't see that that as
They
much.
lost at home to the Astros as well.
Well,
I'm
sure.
not going to hold my breath too much.
But I'm sure there was an impact in a game where somebody knew something that somebody was throwing, and that hurt. But I think the bigger picture is with the Mariners targeting a couple of years down the road, and Houston all of a sudden losing those draft picks. I think that that helps the Mariners in a small amount.
Yeah, I would agree. I think of all the teams in the AL West that probably benefit the most from this, the Los Angeles Angels probably do. They have tried to position themselves to be a sneaky contender in the AL West in the short term, in the next 1 to 3 years. And to me, this is when I think that the Astros will feel this the most. I know the draft picks won't come into play in terms of the major league team for 5 or 6 years from now, but the culture change and the regime change that's going to happen right now, I'm going to imagine they take a step back, and the Angels, meanwhile, feel like they're moving forward on the field major league product for the first time in quite some time after hiring Joe Madden and bringing in a lot of free agents. So I think the Angels are the short-term beneficiary, but I agree with you. The Mariners could see a long-term benefit and perhaps a window opening for them to compete.
Do you think Houston wins 100 next year?
I would be surprised if Houston wins 90 games. I would be surprised.
All right.
I would say somewhere between 83 and 89.
Wow. Okay. There
So,
you have it.
that's
Write it down. I don't make predictions.
That's right. That's why you have me and Shannon together. Until next time, signing off for you. We'll see you at our next vodcast.